Not long ago, the Burj Al Arab was the most photographed hotel on Earth, a sail-shaped monument to excess rising from its own artificial island, where the cheapest room cost more per night than most people earn in a month. Every floor was a statement, every suite a declaration that Dubai had done something no desert city had ever done before. It had made itself indispensable to the world's wealthy. Now look closer. The pools are still heated, the chandeliers still lit, the valet still stands at the entrance in his pressed uniform, but the rooms behind those sparkling windows? 80% empty. Let me repeat that. 80% empty. In a city that once turned away guests, that once had a 3-month wait list for its most coveted suites, that once made travel magazines fight for the privilege of covering it. 80% of hotel rooms now sit unused, not for a week, not for a weekend, night after night after night. This is not a slow season. This is not a scheduling anomaly. This is a city watching something it spent 30 years building dissolve in a matter of months. And the force doing the dissolving is not a financial crisis, not a pandemic, not a real estate correction. It is the sound of missiles. And the question everyone in Dubai's hospitality industry is now asking in private, but refuses to say in public, is terrifyingly simple. Will the guests ever come back? Before we uncover the full story, please consider subscribing and liking this video to support small, independent creators like us. It's the only way we can keep these deep dives coming. Now let's begin. To understand what is being lost, you first have to understand what was built. Dubai's hospitality industry is not simply a collection of hotels. It is the most deliberate act of nation branding in modern history. When Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum looked at a strip of desert coastline in the 1990s and decided to turn it into the luxury capital of the world, nobody believed him. The UAE had oil, but Dubai had almost none. What it had was vision and a willingness to spend money it had not yet earned on infrastructure it was not yet sure it needed. The Burj Al Arab opened in 1999. It was designed to be seen from the air. 7 stars, they called it. A rating that doesn't technically exist, invented specifically because 5 stars wasn't enough. The message was clear. Dubai was not competing. Dubai was creating its own category. What followed was 30 years of escalation. The Palm Jumeirah rose from the sea, an artificial archipelago visible from space. Atlantis, the Palm, opened on it in 2008 with a party that cost $20 million and flew in celebrities from 4 continents. The Armani Hotel moved into the Burj Khalifa, the address, the DIFC, the one and only, the 4 Seasons at Jumeirah. Name any luxury brand in hospitality, and you will find it in Dubai with its most expensive property. By 2019, Dubai International Airport was handling 86 million passengers a year, more than Heathrow, more than JFK. Emirates Airline was the carrier of choice for anyone flying between the East and the West. Dubai wasn't just a destination. It was the world's transfer hub dressed in gold. For every tourist who came to see the Burj Khalifa, there were 10 more who simply stopped there, spending money they had planned to spend somewhere else. The numbers backed up every claim. Hotel occupancy rates consistently above 75%. Revenue per available room among the highest on the planet. Average daily rates at 5-star properties exceeding $700. Tourism contributing over $20 billion to GDP annually. A city that received almost 14 million overnight visitors in 2023 alone, on top of tens of millions more in transit. It looked unbreakable. It looked like the future, and for a long time it was. But here is what the brochures never prepared anyone for. In the early months of 2025, Iran's regional posture shifted in ways that analysts had been warning about for years, but that Dubai's tourism marketing machine had always managed to drown out. Drone attacks on commercial vessels in the Gulf intensified. Ballistic missile tests became more frequent, more visible, and more pointed in their geographic targeting. By late 2025, several Western governments had moved their travel advisories for the UAE from standard caution to active warning. Not recommendation, warning. Then came the night that changed the calculus entirely. Missiles, whether targeted, misdirected, or deliberately provocative, passed over or near Dubai's airspace. Intercepted or not, the damage was done. Not to buildings, not to runways, to something far more fragile and far more essential. The illusion of distance. Dubai had always sold one promise above all others. You can come here and forget the world. You can sit in a rooftop infinity pool with a skyline view, and the only thing on your mind will be whether to order the Wagyu or the lobster. The Middle East's wars, its tensions, its geography. All of that was a backdrop. Scenery, something that happened to other places. That night, the backdrop became the foreground. Within 72 hours, Dubai International Airport suspended operations. Emirates Airline, the flagship carrier of everything Dubai had built, cancelled flights to and from some of the most important markets in its network. Passengers who had flown halfway around the world found themselves sitting in terminals with no information, no answers, and no way forward. One flight from Mumbai turned back mid-air, twice. The pilot had nowhere certain to land. The passengers had nowhere certain to go. Over 20,000 travellers were stranded in a city that had spent 30 years perfecting the art of making people feel welcome. In 48 hours, that number didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the 200 million more who watched it happen on their phones and quietly moved Dubai from the yes column to the maybe column, and then from the maybe column to the not this year. But here is what nobody in Dubai's tourism authority wants to acknowledge publicly. The missile alerts didn't create this crisis. They revealed one that was already forming beneath the surface. Look at the data before that night. Not the headline numbers Dubai publishes. Those are marketing tools. Look at the underlying structure. By the end of 2024, Dubai had more than 152,000 hotel rooms. 152,000. And that number was climbing, with dozens of ultra-luxury projects still under construction, still selling off-plan units to investors who believed the trajectory only went up. Basic economics has a name for what happens when supply grows faster than demand. It has a less polite name for what happens when a market built on exclusivity floods itself with supply. The average daily rate for Dubai hotel rooms had already been under pressure for 18 months before a single missile was fired. Iconic properties, the kind of places where a penthouse used to be a status symbol, had quietly begun appearing on discount booking platforms. 40% off, 50% off. The kind of deals you offer when the alternative is an empty room. A luxury hotel room with a 50% discount is not a bargain. It is a confession. It is the market saying out loud what the marketing materials refuse to say. We built too many rooms, and we charged too much for too long. And now we are afraid. UBS Bank had already issued a red alert on Dubai's real estate bubble before the regional tensions peaked. Real estate transaction volumes had dropped by 37% in key segments. Not prices, not yet. Prices take longer to fall because sellers resist. But volumes falling by a third is the warning signal that comes before the price signal. It means the buyers stopped believing before the sellers did. So when the missiles came, they did not cause the empty rooms. They accelerated a process that the industry had already set in motion. The room that sits at 80% empty tonight was not occupied last Tuesday either. The war gave everyone permission to cancel what they had already been privately reconsidering. It gave them a reason that couldn't be argued with. You cannot tell someone they're being irrational for not wanting to holiday near an active conflict zone. And here is where it gets worse, because the empty rooms are just the first domino. Think about what fills a luxury hotel beyond its guests. The restaurants that serve those guests. The spas that treat them. The retail outlets in the lobby that sell them perfume and jewellery. And leather goods they don't need but feel compelled to buy in a space that makes them feel wealthy enough to justify it. The bars, the rooftop events. The corporate conferences that book 3 floors for a week and run up tabs that keep 50 staff employed. All of that runs on occupancy. When occupancy drops to 20%, you do not simply run the hotel at 20% capacity. You start closing floors, you start cutting staff hours. You start cancelling the contracts of the outside vendors who supply the flowers and the linens and the specialty ingredients. The ripple runs outward fast, and it runs deep. Dubai's economy is more exposed to this kind of ripple than almost any city on earth, for one structural reason that its boosters have always found a way to reframe as a strength. 90% of Dubai's population is foreign. It is the highest proportion of expatriates of any major city in the world. When the economy contracts, that workforce does not stay. It cannot stay. Visas are tied to employment. Employment is tied to sectors that are tied to tourism and real estate. When those sectors contract, the people who run them leave. This is not a theory. This is already happening. Logistics companies specializing in high-end residential relocations reported a surge in outbound moves beginning in the first quarter of 2025, before the worst of the tensions. Financial advisors in Singapore and Hong Kong reported being overwhelmed with calls from Dubai-based clients asking not how to invest but how to move. Quickly, 3 of every 10 such clients were not asking about diversifying assets. They were asking about moving everything. International corporations, many of which had relocated regional headquarters to Dubai during the 2010s precisely because of its stability signal, began quietly activating contingency plans. Some had already moved 1,000 to 3,000 key employees to Riyadh or Singapore. Class A office buildings in downtown Dubai, the kind that once had waiting lists, now had vacancy rates at a 5-year high. The music was still playing. The lights were still on. But the head chefs had started slipping out the back. And then came the signal that frightened even the most optimistic Dubai insiders. The supercars. Dubai International Airport's long-term car parks began accumulating abandoned vehicles. Ferraris, McLarens, Lamborghinis, left with the keys in the ignition or on the driver's seat. Not stolen. Left. Deliberately abandoned by their owners, who had boarded flights and decided that the cost of taking the car with them, or selling it at current market prices, was less attractive than simply walking away from it. When millionaires start abandoning million-dollar cars to catch a flight, you are not watching people make financial calculations. You are watching people experience fear. But here is the trap, and this is the part that Dubai's planners, its investors, and its government are confronting right now with a very uncomfortable recognition. Every tool Dubai has to fix this problem makes the underlying problem worse. The first instinct is to spend, drop prices, offer packages, run promotions, flood social media with images of empty pools that look like exclusive private experiences rather than evidence of distress. Dubai's government has done this before. After the 2009 financial crisis, when real estate prices dropped 50%, they spent aggressively on infrastructure, on events, on visibility. The Formula One rumours, the Expo 2020, the constant stream of world records, the tallest, the largest, the most expensive. It worked. People came back. But discount promotions in 2025 are not the same as discount promotions in 2009. In 2009, the problem was financial. People wanted to come to Dubai but couldn't afford to. Lower the price and they come. In 2025, the problem is psychological. People can afford Dubai. They just don't want to be there while missiles are in the airspace. You cannot discount your way out of a fear response. You cannot run a promotion that says 5 stars, 50% off, mild geopolitical tension included. The second instinct is to build more. This is Dubai's deepest reflex, the one baked into its DNA since the early 2000s. Build something so spectacular that the world has to come and see it. The problem is that building more hotels in a market running at 20% occupancy is not a solution. It is the acceleration of a crisis. Every new room added to an already oversupplied market puts more pressure on prices. More pressure on prices means more discounting. More discounting means more erosion of the exclusivity premium that justified those room rates in the first place. You cannot restore the luxury positioning of a market by flooding it with more luxury. The third instinct is to market harder. Hire more influencers. Run more sponsored content. Buy more reach. This is where it gets darkly ironic. Because the influencer economy that Dubai helped to build, those perfectly lit Instagram posts, those rooftop sunset videos, those smiling faces next to infinity pools, that machine now works against it. In an era where audiences can smell manufactured authenticity from 1,000 miles, paying someone to smile in front of an 80% empty hotel does not restore confidence. It confirms suspicion. It tells the audience that something is being hidden, and the audience is right. The fourth instinct, and this is the most dangerous one, is to control the narrative, to restrict what can be filmed, to make it harder for visitors to document the empty corridors, the abandoned construction sites, the quiet rooftops, to do what authoritarian adjacent governments always do when the reality and the brand diverge too far. Make the gap invisible by controlling the cameras. But in 2025, you cannot control the cameras. Not really. Not when every arriving passenger has a phone in their pocket. Not when every disappointed traveller who finds their dream destination quieter and more anxious than advertised has a platform with 1 million followers to tell the story to. Suppressing the narrative does not change the narrative. It gives the narrative an additional plot point. The cover-up, the one that the algorithm rewards even more than the original story. Step back far enough from Dubai's empty hotel rooms, and you see something that is not specific to Dubai at all. You see the fundamental fragility of any economy built on trust as its primary asset. Dubai is not, at its core, a place that manufactures things. It does not grow food or extract oil in meaningful quantities or develop technology that the rest of the world depends on. What it manufactures is confidence, the feeling of safety, the belief that here in this gleaming city, in a turbulent region, the ordinary rules of the Middle East do not apply, that the chaos outside has been air-conditioned away, that the conflict has been outbid. Trust is the most powerful economic asset in the world. It is also the most fragile. It takes years to build and minutes to destroy. And unlike a building or an airport or a road, once it cracks, no amount of money can simply restore it. You can rebuild a terminal. You cannot rebuild the feeling that a terminal is safe. That feeling returns slowly, at its own pace, on its own schedule, and only when the conditions that destroyed it have been demonstrably, verifiably changed. Look at Beirut. In the 1960s and early 1970s, Beirut was the financial capital of the Middle East. Banque du Liban was one of the most trusted institutions in the Arab world. The hotels along the Corniche were full of the same people who now fill the hotels along Dubai's coastline. It took one civil war to end that era, and 50 years of reconstruction have not fully restored it. Not because Beirut lacks buildings, because buildings are not what was lost. And here is what makes Dubai's situation structurally different from a normal economic downturn. In a normal downturn, you wait for conditions to improve, and business returns. But Dubai's business model depends not just on conditions being good, it depends on conditions being perceived as permanently, reliably, unquestionably good. The entire premium that Dubai charges for its rooms, its restaurants, its real estate, that premium is a trust premium. It is what people pay for certainty in an uncertain world. The moment that certainty is in question, the premium collapses. Not gradually, all at once. This is what economists call a confidence cliff. The asset looks stable right up to the moment it doesn't. And then it doesn't. The deeper philosophical question, and this is one that Dubai's leadership is almost certainly sitting with right now, is whether a city built on the projection of safety can survive becoming a case study in its absence. Not because anything truly catastrophic has happened to Dubai itself. The buildings are standing, the infrastructure is intact, the government is functioning. But the story has changed, and in the attention economy, the story is the product. So where does this leave us? Dubai is not finished. Let that be clear. The UAE has sovereign wealth funds that dwarf the deficits created by empty hotel rooms. The government has managed crises before with a combination of financial firepower and strategic patience that has surprised plenty of analysts who wrote the city off too soon. The airport will reopen fully. The flights will resume. Some of those empty rooms will fill again. But the question is no longer whether Dubai will survive. The question is what kind of city it will be on the other side of this. Will it be the version that recalibrates, that looks at 152,000 hotel rooms and decides that perhaps the frenzied pace of construction was always going to end in oversupply? That decides a city with genuine cultural depth, real community, authentic street life, is more resilient than a collection of world records. That recognizes the difference between being a place people choose and being a place people transit through. Or will it be the version that doubles down, that responds to empty rooms by building more rooms, to lost trust by spending more on marketing, to geopolitical exposure by focusing on the parts of the story it can control and suppressing the parts it cannot? The guests who are not in those empty rooms right now are not gone forever, but they are making decisions. Every week of low occupancy is another week of alternative habits forming. Another European family discovering they love Portugal. Another Asian investor deciding Singapore is more stable than the Gulf. Another conference planner booking Vienna instead of the DIFC. Habits are hard to reverse. Trust, once transferred, is slow to come back. The 30 years that built this city were built on a single, unspoken contract between Dubai and the world. Come here, spend your money, and we will make sure nothing bad happens to you. Tonight, in the rooms that are empty, that contract is being renegotiated. And nobody knows yet what the new terms will be. Tell me what you think in the comments. Do you believe Dubai can rebuild the trust it has lost? And how long do you think that takes? Or is this the beginning of a longer, quieter decline that the skyline will be the last thing to show? Nature's power is absolute, but understanding it is our best defense. If this story moved you, show your support by subscribing and hitting that like button. As a small creator, your engagement is what tells the algorithm this research matters. Let us know in the comments what you want to see for the next video. Until next time, stay safe. This video is compiled from publicly available information and independent analysis, aimed at providing a multi-dimensional perspective on tourism trends and economic shifts. It is not intended to attack any country, organisation, or individual. Some observations are interpretive and may evolve as conditions change. Thank you for watching.